Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe, we live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe, we live for you. We live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken, and I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Lord Jesus, we come today in thankfulness of who you are and what you've done for us. So thank you so much for the gospel and what you've done for us. I ask that you would help us to be attentive this morning, and that we would be alert and ready to listen to your word. I love you and thank you. We now pray. Amen.
All right. Thank you, Malachi. Man, we're so excited to have Malachi. He is 19, right, Malachi? 19 years old, moving across the country away from family to come out here and spend a few months with us to help us as we grow in worship and grow as a church. And so I hope that you will, those of you who call this your home, that you will invest and love on Malachi. Already a family member in the church had a car that they weren't using, and they've allowed him to use it. I'm actually a little jealous. It's nicer than the minivan I drive, and so I thought about lying to him, but figured the truth would come out. So, but no, please invest in Malachi. Have him over for dinner. Take him hiking. Take him to Rockies games. Take me and him to a Broncos game. Whatever it is that you do, he's going to be here at least through our Christmas Eve service, and so please invest in him, love on him. It's a great opportunity for him to be here with us, but also for us to love on him. So Malachi, great job today. Thank you so much for being here with us. We are continuing our series called Imagine, and really this whole series is about imagining life the way that God has planned for us, about living our life the way that God has planned for us. And here's what we've said about Imagine so far is everyone imagines their life looking a certain way. All of us imagine our life looking a certain way. We imagine what it would be like to make the team. We imagine what it would be like to have this job. We would imagine what it would be like to have this type of marriage. We imagine what it would be like for our church to look like something. We imagine things. All of us imagine things. We call them often goals. At the beginning of the year, we call them resolutions. We talk about them in different language, but at the end of the day, everyone imagines their life looking a certain way. And this is a good thing. We should imagine our lives. We should dream about things. We should dream about a better tomorrow than today. We should think and imagine about how we could grow as men. We should imagine, ladies, how you should grow as a lady. We should plan to be a boss. We should plan to be a better employee. We should we should imagine progress and growth. We should imagine things in a better way, what we could be and what we should be. And if you are a follower of Jesus, if you've trusted in Jesus to be your Savior, certainly one of the things we should imagine is what it would be like to be more committed, to be a more devoted follower of Jesus tomorrow than I am today. We should constantly be imagining what that looks like. There's a huge problem, though. Most often, we just settle, especially in our relationship with Jesus, for what it is today. What it is today is really the best it's ever going to be. We may have occasionally a mountaintop experience. We hear a song, we read a verse sometime, and it sparks something in us. But most of the time, we end up settling for who we are. And ultimately, we should never truly be satisfied, especially in our relationship with Jesus. But in all of these aspects of our life, we should never really be satisfied with who we are today. But in all areas, we should be growing. And when it comes to our relationship with Jesus, it's a big churchy word, but it's called sanctification. It's which really just means becoming made more like Jesus. Becoming more like Jesus. Tomorrow, my life resembles Jesus' life a little more than it did today. I'm continually being sanctified. I'm continually growing in my relationship with Jesus and being made more like Him. Now, here's what I know about growing in all areas of life. It's not easy, is it? It is not easy to grow a business. It is not easy to grow a healthy relationship. It's not easy to grow in any area of life. And when we try to go forward, when we try to take that step forward, the world, life pushes back, doesn't it? It pushes us back. It's just natural for them to push against our own growth, our own progress, and push back to the way things are. That just happens. And we try to grow as a dad, and we try to grow in our work life, and we try to grow as a wife, as a mom, as a husband. Those things take intentional effort. They take discipline. They take a plan. They take significant time out of our lives to think about. And the same is true for our relationship with Jesus. It's not just going to be better tomorrow than it is today unless we think about it, unless we put time into it, unless we are disciplined enough to grow in it. And I know that these things are not easy. None of these areas are easy because life gets busy. Life is hard. Life is stressful. If you have kids, it's more stressful because something's always an issue. If you own a business, if you own a home, there's something to be fixed. There's something to be worked on. If you work at a place, there's always deadlines and stresses for you. Life gets busy. Life is hard. And sometimes we just feel like we're trying to keep our head above water, right? Like there's bills to pay, there's schools to get to, and there's practices to get to, and there's deadlines at work, and my boss is on me for this, and my boss is on me for that, and my wife is on me for this, and my husband is on me, and I'm just trying to keep my head above water. Life is difficult. I don't have the energy. I don't have the time to imagine something else, to take steps towards what I possibly imagine. I'm just trying to make it. But I would challenge all of us this morning to ask the question, to imagine if that's not how it has to be. Imagine if that you had help being a better husband. Imagine you had help being a better wife. Imagine you had help when something came up at work and you were faced with a problem, when there were tough decisions to be made. Imagine somebody was there to walk with you through that. Imagine when it comes to your relationship with Jesus, somebody was there to help you grow. Well, we would not be the first ones to imagine this. In fact, a long time ago, before any of us, someone understood this. And it'll be on the screen today. It's in a book called Ecclesiastes. You may have never flipped open your Bible to Ecclesiastes. Now, I had to do a little research to find it myself, okay? But we're going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, and I'll tell you about that in just a minute. But at a point in history, there's a man, not just any man, his name's Solomon. We spent some time this summer looking at some of his teachings in Proverbs, but Solomon was a king of Israel. And he was a great king. He was the son of David. Maybe you've heard of David and Goliath. It was his son. And he becomes king. And David was a great king. The people loved David. They admired David. David did some great things. And so Solomon becomes king. And we are told about Solomon that he is the wisest man ever. And this is fascinating at why we're told that about him. Because when he becomes king, he's kind of overwhelmed. Which, I've never been a king. But I can imagine that's overwhelming to be a king, to try to rule a kingdom, when other kingdoms want to take you over, when people want to overthrow you, when you have to make the final decisions. I can assume that that's probably an overwhelming position to be in. And he's feeling overwhelmed, and he's praying for help one night. And he's asking God to help him. And he has this dream as he's praying. And in this dream, God tells him, Solomon, you can ask me for anything you want, and I will give it to you. Now, if God were ever to say that to me, there's a good chance I'm rolling up in a new truck next Sunday, okay? Because I would really like a new truck, all right? There's a good chance I'm going to have season tickets to a game. There's a good chance I'm taking a month vacation on a beach somewhere. There's a lot of things that if God were to say, hey, whatever you want to ask, you ask, and I'm going to give it to you. But he doesn't ask for any of those things. What Solomon asks for is wisdom. Now, he's the king of a nation. 1 Kings 3 tells us this. It tells us this story. As the king of a nation, he could have asked, I want to be king for as long as I live with no one ever trying to take my throne, which was pretty common in those days. Everybody else thought they could be a better king, right? He could have said, I want every nation that ever attacks, I want us to just defeat them so easily, and I remain king. There were so many things that he could have asked for as a king. But he's not selfish. He doesn't ask for money. He doesn't ask for long life. He doesn't ask for his enemies to be destroyed. But he asks for wisdom. He says, God, I just want wisdom. I want to do this king thing well. And in 1 Kings 3, it tells us that this pleased God so much that God said, I'm going to give you so much wisdom that there's never going to have been anyone like you before and never anyone like you after. You are going to be the wisest person to ever live. Now, why is that important? It's important. It's really pretty amazing because he's the one who's going to give us the advice today. This is not just somebody. This is the person that God said, no one before you is like you. No one after you is like you. You are it when it comes to being wise. And this person is who gives us advice today. So it's not me giving you advice. This isn't what Michael thinks. This isn't what your mom thinks. This isn't what your friend thinks. This is what the wisest person that God says has ever lived says. And so he's nearing the end of his life and he's looking back over life and he's beginning to write things down. He's getting sentimental. And he's writing things to his sons, he's writing things to his kingdom, and certainly he's writing things that would later be there for you and me. And one of the pieces of advice he gives, one of the parts of wisdom he shares that he has learned as the king, that he has learned through the wisdom that God has given him, And this is so important. He shares this with us in Ecclesiastes 4, verse 9. It starts with this: two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their efforts. For if either one of them falls, his companion can lift him up. But pity the one who falls without another to lift him up. He goes on to say, also, if two lie down together, they can keep warm. But how can one person alone keep warm? How can you do it by yourself? And if someone overpowers one person, two can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. So the wisest person to ever live looks back. He looks back at his life as he ruled, as he watched people, as people in his kingdom live their life. And he says this, is that you can't live life alone. That's what he tells us. Again, this is not me telling you this. This is the wisest person that has ever lived, evaluates his life, evaluates his kingdom's life. And he says, you can't live life alone. And he says that because what's true in his day is true in our day. Life is difficult. Life can make you tired. Life can make you frustrated. Listen, maybe this hasn't happened to you, but it's going to. We've all failed at something in life, haven't we? We had the best intentions and we messed it up. We failed. It didn't go the way that we thought. And we needed someone to walk with us. And he talks about it. He says, sometimes you're going to fall down. Right? Sometimes you're going to fall down. And the thing about falling down is, no one plans to do it. Right? Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I think today's a good day for me to just make a mess of things. I'm just going to make bad decision after bad decision. Nobody plans for that. No one wakes up one morning and says, today is the day that I'm just going to stop loving my wife. No, nobody plans for that. No one gets up one day and says, today's it. Today's when I'm going to start cheating my customers to make a little more money. And it's not a momentary decision. It's small decisions over time. No one plans to just fall down like that. No one plans to run their relationship, to invest in something poorly. No one plans to ignore what God is telling them. We don't plan that, but the truth is all of us have fallen down. All of us have failed at something. All of us have made a mistake. In fact, we make more mistakes in our life than anybody around us, right? Like nobody else is more responsible for the choices I've made than I am. When things are a problem, when things are messed up, most of the time it's because of a decision, it's because of a choice that I made and I fell down. We've all made mistakes. We've all had that day when nothing went right. Right? You just come home and just nothing has gone right. Everything that could go wrong that day went wrong that way. It's just been a bad day. And when that day comes, if we haven't planned, if we haven't developed a group of people to help us, it's too late. It's too late once we've fallen down to get help. I think about the commercial that used to be on TV. I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's the old person who falls down and they're yelling, I've fallen and I can't get up, and you're like, it's an empty house. Nobody can hear you, right? The point of that is, hey, you better plan for the day that you fall down. Once you fall down, that's not the moment to start planning. You've got to plan ahead of time because all of us fall in life. Solomon not only talks about falling down, he talks about the need that we're gonna be in some situations where we have no control over it. Right? Solomon talks about this. That's what he's talking about when he says it's cold. When it's cold and you need someone to be there for you. You have no control over the temperature. You have no control over the weather. And there's things in life that you can't control, but you still need people with you. Maybe there's been a moment in your life where you've lost a loved one and you had no control over that and you needed people with you. Maybe there was a moment in life where you've suffered loss. There's been an illness. There's been a sickness. There's been a job that no longer needed you. And you didn't have any control over that. And in these moments that you went from comfort to discomfort, seemingly in a second, you need people around you. I promise you will need someone to comfort you in this time, and Solomon knows that. He says you've got to have somebody with you when those moments come that you can't control. And then he says you've got to have someone with you who can fight for you, right? Like you better have a group that's tough to bring down. Now, this is not talking about, hey, get your boys and go looking for trouble in the street, okay? That's not what he's talking about. But he's saying someone who will defend you, someone who will encourage you, someone who will stand up for you, someone who knows you. He's saying when you have people in your life that care and they love you, they'll protect you. They will help keep you from falling. You need people in your life who love and care for you so that you don't have to figure everything out alone. They'll fight for you in that difficult time. They'll fight for you in that situation that you're not sure what to do. They will wrestle with that along with you as though it was their own decision to help you in that moment. Because life is difficult to navigate. Because none of us are perfect. Right? Don't elbow your husband or wife, okay? We all know none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. I got, a couple of years ago, I got my son a remote control car for Christmas. He was way too young to have a remote control car. I really got it because I wanted one, but I gave it to him. And it was one of those remote control cars. Like, I like the ones that has the little square box and the two sticks, forward and back, left and right. But it was one of those that has the trigger and the wheel. Do you know what I'm talking about? You turn the wheel to make it go, and you do the trigger, and it just really doesn't make sense. And I've always hated those. And I didn't realize that's the type of control it had because I just can't figure out which way is going to go right and which way is going to go left and which way is going to go forward and back. None of it made sense to me. And so I get him this car, and I open it, and he opens it, and we put the batteries in it, and he's ready to go. And I'm like, son, I need to make sure this works right. I need to make sure this is approved for your age. And so, I'm driving the car. I run the batteries out of it. I'm not going to lie. We had to recharge it. But as I'm driving it around the house, I'm bouncing off everything. Because I can't figure out this control. Still to this day, I still can't do those types of controls. I'm running into stuff. I'm running into people. I'm hitting things. It's flipping over, and then I got to get up and go across the room or across the yard and put it back on its wheels. And everybody's just kind of standing around laughing at me, My 3-year-old son's like, Dad, you're not very good at this. I don't want to ride in the real car with you anymore after seeing this. Like, I just wasn't very good at driving this thing. It would get stuck everywhere. I just didn't have a handle on how to do it. But then, after we recharge it, I give him the control. And I'm thinking, well, let's see how good you are at it, tough guy, right? It's tough love. He's 3. He needs to be a man one day. So I'm like, let's see what you do. But here's what happened. My wife, his older sister, grandparents, they get down on the floor with him. And they spread out. And he doesn't know how to drive it any better than I do. But instead of letting him run into the wall, do you know what they do? They reach down and turn it for him. Hey, you're doing great. It's going great, right? It begins to flip over. I've got it for you, son. They flip it over, and he just has a great time sitting in the chair, driving this car around. Now, he wasn't any better of a driver than I am. He didn't know what he was doing in that moment. But his sister's helping him, his mom's helping him, his grandparents are helping him. We're both using the same control. We're both in the same situation driving the car. But guess who has more fun? He did. He did because he had more help. I was all alone driving this thing. Every time there was a problem, I had to fix it. Every time I ran into something, I had to go take care of it. Every time it flipped over, I had to get up and go flip it back on its wheels. But not my son. He had people with him. That's what Solomon is saying here. He's saying we need someone in our life that when we get close to running into something, they help steer us back to where we should be. And when we do make a huge mistake, when we do mess things up, when we do feel like we've flipped upside down, we have people there to help us get unstuck. He's saying you don't have to go through difficult things alone. And listen, these types of people are not just there for the bad stuff. We also have wins in life, don't we? We also have successes. We also do things that we want to celebrate, that we want to share with the people around us. And here's what I know about those moments in life is in both our struggles and our successes, we weren't meant to experience them alone. Listen, in your biggest struggle and in your greatest success, you weren't meant to experience it alone. That is not how God made us. And so for the next few minutes, I want to share with you what our church 8025, does in light of the wisdom given to us by Solomon. Because we can either read that and think, oh, that's great advice, close our Bible and move on about our day, or we can do something with it. And we want to choose to do something with it. And so we choose to think about what it looks like to live in community with others. And we do that here through something we call mission groups. And some of you are in a mission group. Some of you, this may be the first time you've heard about it, but we call these mission groups. And here's what a mission group is. A mission group are a group of people moving in the same direction together. It's really simple. This is what a mission group is, a group of people moving in the same direction together. Now, we're going to unpack this a little bit as we go. We're going to talk a little bit more specifically about what this looks like. But let me start by saying, if you're already in a mission group, don't just tune me out right now. Okay, don't tune me out. This is still for you because there's still something in it for you. And if you're not in a mission group, I'm going to lay my cards out on the table up front. Today, my goal is to encourage you to get in a mission group because Solomon tells us you are meant to live life in community. So we're going to start with this. Why do we believe in mission groups here at Church 8025? Let me start by telling you why we believe in mission groups. The first thing is this. They allow us to be better stewards. As a church, mission groups allow us to be better stewards. This is just a real practical level, okay? We rent this facility each time we meet in it. And it's not super cheap. And if we were to say, hey, the only time we're going to be in community is in this moment, we're going to spend a lot of money renting a place for us to be together. When the truth is, we have homes. We have homes that we can go and we can get together. We can meet in community in those homes, and it doesn't cost us a penny. Maybe a little bit of pizza and some cleanup, but we can afford that, right? We can make that happen. It allows us to invest our money into other things. It allows us to invest our money as a church collectively back into the community to help those in need. And so it allows us to be a better steward. It allows us to use money for missions. There was a church plant, a friend of mine that back this summer, he had 3 trailers and they got stolen, all 3 of them. All of their equipment got stolen on a Saturday night. And so they were just out of everything. And we were able to give to them, give some money because of your generosity. Because we didn't need that money to rent a place for us to meet during the week to gather together. So we were able to give that. It allows us to be better stewards. Here's the second thing the reason we believe in mission groups. They provide care for people we can't provide. Mission groups provide care for people that we can't provide because we'll never have enough staff. We'll never have enough people. We'll never have enough time to facilitate the physical and the spiritual care for every person. We just won't. Because life is tough. Life is hard, and there are problems. And I love all of you, but there's times I can't answer my phone. There's times I can't be there in that moment for you. And mission groups allows us as a church to provide care that without them, we couldn't provide. I've seen mission groups be there for families when tragedy has happened, way more than a pastor could be. Like they were there, man. They just opened their arms for them. I've watched mission groups help people move across town. I'm not going to help you move, okay? It's my least favorite thing in the world to do. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'll show up and push a dolly around a little bit, but that's just hard for me to be there every time somebody here wants to move. But you know what a mission group can do? They can help you move. That's just a practical thing that we have. I've seen mission groups welcome people in who might not have wanted to be there at first. Hey, it usually looks something like this. The wife wants to be there, and so they drag the husband. Right? Maybe some of you, that's how you got into a mission group, is you love your wife, and your wife said, hey, if you really love me, you're going to come to this. And they get there that way, but then they begin to make friends, and they live life together. And what happens in these mission groups, the care that can happen there's accountability that can happen. Hey, I'm struggling with this. I'm walking through this. I'm not sure what I'm going to do here. And your mission group can come alongside. Maybe it's all of them. Maybe it's a person that helps with some accountability there. There's personal relationships that begin to form in mission groups that on a Sunday like this, and certainly as we continue to grow, are harder and harder to know everybody. And really, I think one of the best things is specific prayer can happen for you in your mission groups. I pray for our church every day in a general sense. And there are instances when I know some of you are going through something that I add to that prayer list. But I can't pray for everything that's happening in everybody's life every single day. I can't do it. Right? But in your mission group, man, you can come and say, hey, I need prayer for this. And they can pray for you. They can take that to God for you. There's so much that can happen in a mission group. Another reason we believe in mission groups is we believe they reach more people. We believe they reach more people. Our motto, our tagline here is, you are the church. Our goal is never that you believe you are a follower of Jesus because you attend this hour on a Sunday morning. right? You are a follower of Jesus because you've trusted in him. And this is where we get together and we get to celebrate the things that God is doing in your life. And when you meet in homes, when you meet together as a group, it's a natural way for others to see you. When people see parked cars at your house, your neighbor, hey, what are you guys doing over there? Right? That's an open invitation to talk to them. Hey, I would love for you to come hang out with us sometime. That's a great opportunity for that to happen. When neighbors walk across the yard, they will walk across the yard to talk to you before they will get in their car and drive across town to come into this gathering. That's just how we are as people. We want to take that small step. They'll come into your house before they'll come into this gathering. In fact, listen to this. We've got families that have come to mission groups long before they ever walked foot in this gathering. Yeah, they came to mission groups. They got to know people. And then the next step one day was, man, we're going to go. What's that thing y'all go do on a Sunday? We're going to go with you. And they went with them to that. And it gets even more scandalous than that. Listen to this. We've got some people in some mission groups that don't even go to this church. I know. It's crazy. We should kick them out, right? No, we shouldn't. Because the goal is that people in mission groups are taking that next step on a journey towards knowing Jesus better. And so in mission groups, it allows us to reach more people. Listen, Jesus spent way more time with people in their homes than he did in their temples. Jesus spent way more time in people's homes than he did in their temples. He didn't say, hey, Matthew and John, hey, I'm going to see you on Sunday, all right? Make sure you're there. I didn't see you last week. Make sure you're there. No, he ate dinner with them. He hung out with them. They traveled together. They spent time together. They did life together. That is the model that Jesus gives us. You want to start making a difference. You want to start impacting people's lives. Open your front door. They are there. Be the church. And mission groups allow us to do that. And then one last reason we believe in them, I think this is a pretty good reason we try to do most things this way, is because we believe in mission groups because they're biblical. Right? We find this in God's word. Now, they're not called mission groups, but in Acts 2, which back last August as we began this, we spent time in Acts 2. But it says in verse 46, every day they devoted themselves to meeting together in the temple. So that would be coming together like this in a large group. And they broke bread from house to house. Now listen, Acts 2 is telling us, hey, every day they got together and did this, right? The setup team and the teardown team was like, man, we got to go every day, Every day they spent time together. They met together as a large group like this for the teaching of God's word, and then they got together for a small group for fellowship. It's a biblical thing for us to do community together. Now, there's a few misconceptions we have about mission groups, and so I want to give you these misconceptions. I want to take these off the table for you before I ask you to sign up for one. One of them is this: Hey, Michael, I've got to find 3 hours in my week that's already crammed, that's already full of stuff. Like, I just don't have that time. Well, I want to challenge that misconception a little bit. One challenge, and this is just me talking here. We make time for the things that are important, right? We find the time, so let's take that off. But also, mission groups. Most of our mission groups don't meet every single week. My mission group meets every other week for 2 hours, and then I kick them out because I've got other things to do, right? We meet for a couple of hours every few weeks. It's not as taxing on our time as we would say. Another misconception is, Michael, I've only got a few hours, or I've got to make a few hours to do something like this. I don't want to spend 3 extra hours. I don't want to spend 2 extra hours with a stranger in their home. Right? And I get that. Now, some of you, you've never met a stranger. You don't even knock. It's your first time there. You just walk through the front door, You're just there. You're already in the refrigerator. But some of you maybe are like, man, I don't want to go spend time with this stranger. But let me ask you this. What was your best friend at one time? Come on, somebody knows this. A stranger. That's right. Like, y'all didn't meet in the hospital room and high five and be like, yeah. You weren't born that way. At some point, your best friend now was a stranger. Let's take it a step further. Guess what your husband or your wife was at one point? Let's say it together. A stranger, right? At some point, the people that you love the most in your life were strangers. So we have to get over that aspect. Here's another one. I've got to be prepared to confess all my internal struggles, every deep, dark secret with a stranger. No, you don't, right? If you go to a group and the first time you're there, they say, hey, we want to know your deepest, darkest secret. You tell them, hey, Michael said I didn't have to do that and I'm leaving, okay? That's not how this works. That's not something you have to do. Here's another one. I got to bring a meal each week to feed this group of strangers. Maybe your group does food. Maybe your group doesn't do food. But if that's what's keeping you from being in a group, just tell them, hey, I'm only going to be here for a while to eat the food. One day I will bring some, but right now I'm just going to eat it, okay? Don't let that be an excuse. And here's another one. You're committed to these strangers for the rest of your life. You're not. You're not. We don't live life that way. We don't say, hey, the guy that I work out with at the gym, now that's the person I have to work out with for the rest of my life. We don't say that. The person I go running with, the person that I got coffee with, now that's the only person I can ever, no. That group may be there for you just for that season of life. Now, maybe you move past strangers to close friends and a close relationship where you're growing in your relationship with God together and you want to stay together. But maybe it's for a season and then you move to another group. So those are some of the misconceptions that I hope we can get rid of. And so you know why we believe in groups and you know what they aren't. That's not what our groups are about. But I want to share with you what our groups are, what Church 8025 groups are all about. The first thing that we're all about, and this is probably good, they're about God, right? Some of you belong to a hunting club, you belong to a book club, you belong to a softball team, you belong to a new moms organization, whatever it is, you belong to those things. And those things are good. And we can talk about those things and we can be excited about those things. But our mission groups has to include God. Otherwise, it's just a social club with a theme. And we're okay with that. We're fine with social clubs with a theme. They're just not our mission groups. Because our mission groups are primarily about God. I hope that you run and I hope that you hunt and I hope that you like to read and have hobbies. And we'll talk about all those things at our group, except running. We're not talking about that at my group, okay? But ultimately, our purpose is to not be a better runner. It's not to be a better hunter. Ultimately, our purpose is to be more like Jesus. So our mission groups, and we make no excuses around it, they are centered around God. And what's great about this is you don't have to have everything in common to belong to a group. Like if you're going to be in a hunting group, guess what you should probably do? This is an easy question. This is easy, okay? Guess what you should do if you're going to be in a hunting group? Hunt. Yeah, that's right. Like you shouldn't be, out for animal rights and join the hunting group. It's not going to go well, okay? You shouldn't be a hunter and join PETA. It's probably just not going to be a good relationship, right? But you could be both of those things and be in a mission group. In our mission groups, my mission group last semester, we had, as a pastor, we had teachers, we had stay-at-home moms, we had a fireman, we had a real estate agent, we had a geologist. Now, listen, if you're in the running group, you've got to be about running. But if you're in a mission group, you can have a room full of people from all walks of life because we're there to learn and grow in our relationship with God. So that means that when the geologist comes in and sits down, I don't have to know about geology. Thank God, right? Because this is how I started every conversation with him. You seen any cool rocks lately? Because that's my extent of knowledge. And I'll be honest, I'm not positive that that's even the right thing to say to a geologist. I'm not sure. But that's how I started every conversation. Seen any cool rocks lately? He would laugh and we would move on. I didn't have to be an expert in geology because that's not the primary purpose. And he could talk to me about geology and I would shake my head and I would learn something new. But at the end of the day, our mission groups are about God. See, listen to this. This is crazy. This is crazy, okay? This is going to blow some of your minds. People who aren't actually just like each other, listen, can learn from each other. I know. We could stop there, right? That's crazy. But people who aren't just like each other can learn from each other. And so we want that to happen. That's the second thing that we are passionate about in our mission groups. The first one is God. The second one is growth. Like we don't want to go through a semester of mission groups and be the same people. Now, there's no cookie cutter process, right? There's no cookie cutter process when it comes to how we grow, especially in our relationship with God. The goal is to take the next step, whatever that step is. And so we're not concerned that everybody who comes into your mission group is all at the exact same place in their relationship with God. In fact, I hope, I pray that you welcome people into your mission group who maybe, listen to this, don't even believe in God yet. Who maybe say, I'm not real sure about that. Like, we don't want to say, hey, well, when you figure that out, you can come to our group. We want to say, well, just come listen to us talk about him for a little while. Right? We don't all have to be at the same place. We want to influence people in a way that they continue to make progress on their journey. Remember, I said mission groups are simply people moving in the same direction together, but that direction is towards God. I didn't say it's people at the same place moving in the same direction. Some of you may be the most spiritually mature people in your group. And some of you may not even believe in God yet. That's okay. Our mission groups are designed to help everyone take their next step towards Jesus, wherever they are in that process. And we think this is done through the third thing that our mission groups are really all about, and that's relationships. We go back to the wisest man who's ever lived, and we say, hey, how should we do this? How should we go through life? How should we know more about God? How should we become a more devoted follower of Jesus? And he says through relationships. So that's why we do mission groups. Now listen, I'm a realistic person. I understand many of you have already begun making your list of why this sounds good, but you don't need mission groups in your life. Some of you you're writing them down. I don't know, maybe they're just in your head right now. Let me share some of the most common ones. Here's one of the most common ones. Michael, I've already got plenty of friends. First off, what I know about the people who say this is usually the people with the least amount of friends, just to be honest. But we say that, hey, I've got plenty of friends. But I want to challenge you on this thought, right? Sometimes we, especially today, we mistake how many people are friends with us on social media as our friends. Right? But let me be honest, you're being lied to there. Because what we post on social media is the best part about our lives, isn't it? It's the best meal that we've ever made in our life, and we take a picture and we're like, hey, look what I whipped up tonight, you know? We don't show the burnt macaroni we made the night before and had to run to Taco Bell, because that's a parenting fail. Right? We talk about the business success. Look at the contract I just closed. Not, oh man, I totally messed this contract up and another guy got the contract. Like we're not posting those things. And so those relationships that we have through social media are really based on our most perfect moment. And it's a dangerous game that we play when we try to say that is our community. The truth is, most of us could use a few more people around us to speak wisdom into our life. Most of us could use a few more people who aren't exactly like us and who can see things from a different perspective to speak truth into our life. Here's another excuse. This is the one I get the most. Michael, I've got this. Michael, you see my life? It's good, man. It's good. I've got this. Job's good. My wife loves me. My kids adore me. They obey first time I ask them to do something. Business is going. I've never made more money in my life. Life is going great. I'm walking with God, man. I'm spending time with God. It's great. My relationship is good. I'm a mature believer. I've got this. I don't need a group right now. To you, I would say yes. I'm so excited that your life is great. I'm so excited that everything is stable, because here's what I know is we need you in our groups, because my life isn't like that. And so I can learn from you. Other people in your group, they have not figured out everything yet, and they could learn from your experiences. They could learn from your advice. You might not need something from someone, but someone probably needs something from you. Right? You may have it all together and you say, I've got this. I don't need a group. But somebody is saying, I just wish somebody has walked down this road before. It could help me out. And here's why I know this is not a valid excuse. Yes, sometimes you're going to hear the same thing in a mission group. You're going to do a study that you've heard before. You're going to read a passage that you've done before. You're going to talk about something that you've talked about before. But here's why that's not an excuse. It's because a lot of you, maybe most of you, this afternoon when we get done, you're going to leave and you're going to go eat at a restaurant that you have done what before? Eaten, right? You've been there before, right? Many of you this afternoon, you're going to sit down on the couch and you are going to watch a rerun of a show that you've seen before. Many of you are going to watch more than one Broncos game this year, aren't you? Because why? Because the things that are good, we want more of. I like that food. I'm going back. I like that show. I'm going to watch it again. The Broncos are my team, good or bad. They run the same plays every week pretty much. I'm going to watch them again because we want more good in our life. And hearing something about God and how he relates to us, how we should follow him is a good thing. Hearing it more than once is a better thing because none of us have gotten it perfect. And then the final one is this, is that's just not my personality. Michael, that's just like, I'm a quiet person. I keep to myself more. That's just not easy for me. With all the love I have in my heart, please know, this is with all the love in my heart. I don't have a witty way around this. Here's all I know about this is God's truth doesn't just apply when it fits our personality. That's all I know to say about that. I don't know how to make you be more personable and like being around people more, but I do know that God says you should be, and so it doesn't matter what you're comfortable doing, it matters that you obey God. And God says we need to be in groups. And besides that, listen, if you're the quiet person, guess who made you that way? This is also an easy question. Guess who created you that way? God did. So do you think that God is saying, listen, here's what I think. People should live life in community. Oh, man, I created some people who don't really like people. I'm just going to tiptoe out of this and let them figure it out. No, he didn't do that. God did both. He said, I'm going to create some people that are a little more quiet. We could probably use more of those people. People who are a little more to themselves. But I'm also going to create a need for community. And these two things are going to work together. So if that's you, that's just not your personality, God will figure that out. I promise you, he is not worried about that. Our being comfortable is not a reason enough to ignore what God has for us. And so ultimately, we want mission groups to be a place where people are loved, where the gospel is shared, and where we grow to be more devoted followers of Jesus. So what am I telling you? What is Solomon telling you in this passage that we read? This is what I want you to imagine your life about over the next 6 months. I want you to think about your life this way. This is the bottom line for you to take with you this week. Imagine your life as a book and not a journal. Imagine your life as a book and not a journal. Here's what I mean by this. I have a journal at my house, and it's, it looks similar to a book. It's got pages in it. It's got a cover on it. But do you know what happens when I read a good book? You know what I do? I tell people about it. I have some friends who are readers, even some friends who aren't readers. I'm like, hey, you should still read this because it's a really good book. And I share it. I'll give it away. I'll say, hey, man, just take my copy. Don't worry about it. Read this book. I'm always giving books out. I'm always sharing them with people. I'll take it to my wife and say, hey, I know you've got a book lined up to read, but my book's better than the book you're going to read next, so promise you need to read this book. I tell people how good it is. I share with them, hey, listen, this is what I learned from this book. I've got notes in the cover. Man, this taught me this about leadership. This taught me this about God. This was just a fun book that taught me how to be a better camper or a better hiker. I read books and I share with people. Now, my journal, I have a journal that I do each year, and I don't write pages every day, but it's got some personal stuff in it. It's got some struggles. It's got some fears, and it is a journal. Okay, it's not a diary. Guys, don't laugh at me, okay, because it doesn't have a little key and a lock, and that's the difference. And I don't keep it under my mattress. It's leather bound, and it sits on a shelf, so it's manly. And I write in it, and I write prayers in it. And I say, God, I don't know about this. God, I'm struggling with this. God, help me with this. And I write things in my journal, but I keep them to myself. If you come over, I'm not going to say, hey, man, come here. I want to show you something. Look at my journal. Why don't you just read through this and see all about me? That's not going to happen, okay? And you can come over and you can snoop around and try to find it. But I'm a pretty tough guy. We're going to fight, okay? But what I will do when you come over is I'll say, hey, do you like to read? Let me share this book with you. We need to live our life like a book, not a journal. Nobody here benefits from my journal except for me. But everyone who reads a book that I share benefits from it. We want you to imagine your life lived as a book for people to learn from, for people to grow from. And we want to help you do that. We want to create spaces, community, where you can live your life as a book with other people. Listen, some of you have gone through some things, and they were horrible, awful things that you have gone through. And by God's grace, you have been brought through them. Here's what I know. Somebody else is going to go through something very similar to that. And if you stay away from community, they're going to have to walk through it alone. And if you walked through it alone, I bet you would say, I wish somebody was there to walk through that with me. Life is a challenge. And we need community. And after all, a few hundred years after Solomon writes this, almost 1,000 years later, Jesus is with his disciples. And in Matthew 18 and verse 20, they are gathered around and he's talking to them. And he tells them this. He says, where there's 2 or 3 people gathered in my name, gathered because of me, I will be there with them. Now, let's just be real practical on this. If Jesus says, you want my presence? Then gather with 2 or 3 other people. Let it be about me, and I'll be there. What should we do? We should listen to that, shouldn't we? We should find reasons to be a part of community instead of excuses not to be. We should say, listen, if Jesus said he's going to be there when there's people who are there together in his name, I need more of that, not less. In other words, we need to say, I'm committed to my life being a book where I bring other people around. They learn from my story. I'm not going to be a journal that I keep to myself that no one else knows about. So here's a few questions for you to think about today, to talk about this week with someone else. What part of your life could you benefit from learning from others? What thing are you going through? What business problem do you have? What relational problem do you have? What challenge, what tragedy are you walking through in your life right now that you could benefit from learning from somebody else? Somebody else has been there and somebody else has done that. You're all amazing people, but there is nothing new under the sun. Somebody's walked down this road. What could you benefit learning from others? The second question is this: what have you been through that someone else could benefit by learning from you? Listen, you have a story to tell, not to keep to yourself. The good and the bad. Somebody else needs to hear it. Somebody else needs to experience that. Somebody else needs to see the mercy and grace of God in your life played out now. Somebody else needs to hear it. Who could do that? Where could you do that? I know a place. There's the third question for you. What is more important to you than becoming and helping others become more like Jesus? What's more important to you? I can't answer that question for you. I know some of the common answers. Work, I'm tired, sports, school, hobbies. What is it for you that is keeping you from becoming and helping others become more like Jesus? That's a question we all have to answer. We have to be honest with ourselves when we answer that, when it comes to community. Let's pray together. God, we love you. We thank you for this story that you give us through Solomon, where he shares with us that we can't do life alone, that we need other people. And God, I first pray that if there's anyone here today who has not trusted in you, who is truly doing life alone, they are not, have not surrendered their life to you as their Savior, I pray today that the Holy Spirit would convict them and that they would hear that conviction and they would begin to imagine life surrendered to their Creator. And that they would trust in you, that they would come talk to me or Joe or somebody here today and say, I need to know more about what it means to walk with Jesus. And then for those in this room who have surrendered their life to Jesus, who have said, yes, I am a follower of Jesus, God, I pray that we would understand the importance you place on community, the importance you place on sharing our lives with others and others learning and us learning from other people's life. That we would be as committed to community with other believers as we are to anything else. Because where 2 or 3 are gathered in your name, you will be there. Help us to long to be in places where you are. God, we love you and thank you. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Listen, if you have any questions about today, or if you have made a decision for Jesus, or you're thinking about making a decision, but you're just not sure, we have, you can text and ask us 8025 question to the number 94,000. Somebody will respond to you. Somebody will give you an answer. We'll talk with you about whatever questions you may have. And then also, if you are not in a mission group, I'm asking you to sign up for a mission group so that you can grow from others and others can grow from you. And you can do that by going to church8025.com/mission groups. If you just go to our homepage there and you go under Connect, you'll see mission groups, and you'll see all of our mission groups. And they're amazing mission groups. There's some amazing men and women who are not all biblical scholars. They're just people who said, you know what, I want to open my home. I want people to be able to come here to grow in their relationship with God. And so those are starting this week. Groups are starting this week. So we would love for you to go ahead, go there and sign up, because we truly believe what Solomon said, that two are better than one. And we believe what Jesus said, that when 2 or 3 are gathered together, I will be there. So we want to be in places where Jesus has promised he would be.